Hello there, it's Business Nigeria. I am Sarah Yuku, standing in for Tolulope Gunjobi. Thank you so much for joining us on the midweek edition of the show. These are the top stories we're tracking for you at this time. Nigeria gains 73 naira 39 kobo against the dollar at the official market. In California, other states sue TikTok over youth protection claims. But China's runway rally stutters, commodities and global shares subdued. And on the show today, we will stay with the hike in fuel prices and other burning economic issues in the country. What are the impacts on businesses and citizens? And on the flip side of the program, we shall be examining the latest report by the National Bureau of Statistics on Nigeria's capital importation as the country records $2.6 billion in the second quarter of the year 2024. Well, let's start with stories that made headlines around the world of business. The Naira on Tuesday appreciated by 73 Naira 39 kobo at the official market, trading at 1,561 Naira to a dollar. Data from FMDQ Exchange revealed this, and this represents a 4.48% gain when compared to previous trading on Monday, when it exchanged at more than 1,635 Naira to a dollar. Also, the total daily turnover increased above $253 million from $126 million recorded on Monday. Meanwhile, at the investors and exporters window, the Naira traded between 1,650 Naira and 1,540 Naira against the dollar, respectively. Well, the Nigeria Deposit Insurance Corporation, NDIC, has reiterated its commitment to ensuring excellent and exceptional service delivery to stakeholders. The managing director of the corporation, Mr. Bello Hassan, said this at the 2024 NDIC Customer Service Week celebration in Abuja. Represented by the executive director, corporate service of the NDIC, Mrs. Emily Osuji, said customer satisfaction is a priority. He said the theme for this year's celebration, Above and Beyond, reflected the spirit of collaboration and the unwavering commitment of the corporation. The National Coordinator of Servcom Office commended NDIC on prompt payment of the failed Heritage Bank customers, stating that customer service is the core means of building brand loyalty. Well, for a lot of people already, you know, this is breaking news that there are reports that some filling stations of the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited has increased the pump price of petrol from 855 Naira per litre to 998 Naira per litre. Well, the new development represents a 12.7% increase, or should we say that's 113 Naira increase from the initial price. So this is coming after the NNPC decided to terminate its exclusive purchase agreement with Dangote Refinery. Well, let's bring in our correspondent, senior reporter Theophilus Alama, who is monitoring the situation on the streets. Theophilus, talk to us. What are people saying about this new pump price? Nobody saw this coming.
Yes, Sarah, no one saw it coming and just came as a breaking news about an hour ago. But a lot of people are not happy with the situation. I'm at the NNPC fuel station at Alakwere, and you can see the queue is quite heavy. Everyone trying to get fuel. Many of these people did not know that the pump price has been increased from 885 Naira per litre to 998 Naira. Some are just knowing, many did not know until they get to the selling point before they will understand the situation. But as it is right now, we also saw that a lot of people are also rushing in to buy fuel. If you look at the road moving at this point, people are queuing even up to the end of this expressway to get the product for their vehicles. It's quite a demanding situation, as many people are unhappy with the increase in pump price, because they are saying that if the increase in pump price can lead to the increase in other commodities, because everyone is using fuel for one thing or the other, the transportation of goods and services. So it will lead to increase in the price of goods and services, especially foodstuff. So these are the situations. Now, many people are not really happy with the increase. This is close to 1,000 naira from NNPC station. Other filling stations will be selling maybe above 989 naira, 198 naira per litre rather. And of course, these are the developments here at the NNPC fuel station in Lakpere.
Of course, a lot of us are not happy about the situation of things. But Theophilus, do you have an idea as to why there is an increase just within how many weeks?
Well, the NNPCL is saying that they are no longer off-takers with the Dangote refinery. They've terminated their contract, and so they've opened the system. They've opened, this is an open deregulation. Now, they've opened the system in such a way that everyone can discuss with Dangote and buy petrol at their own prices from Dangote refinery. And so NNPC is deregulating the sector such that that will reflect market forces, of course, looking at the dollar increment and all of that. So we might be seeing, it's not a personal view, but we might be seeing another increment maybe in weeks from now and months from now, because of the increase in the dollar price in the market. And so NNPC are saying that they've opened the system for full deregulation so that every player can come in. So we might also be seeing that other modular refinery, people who own licenses for modular refineries might be opening up, but those who have license for major refineries will be opening up as well. It opens the market for all players to come in and make money. And so when that happens, we believe that it will bring a reduction in the fuel price. Just take, for example, the telecom sector. We had one player before with Nitel, and now we have several others, and so the prices had to reduce at different times. The price of full SIM cards, the price of data, the price of airtime had to reduce. So we expect that this will happen with time. Of course, there's so much complaints here. People are not happy with the increment, and she's caught my attention because she's been shouting TVC inside the car. What?
Shouting TVC? No, but it's still, I heard it's 1,000 naira.
998 naira.
Oh my days, this is sad. But it is well, we move. I don't know, it's so sad.
How do you feel about this?
I feel sad. I feel very, very sad. That's all I can say. That's all I can say.
Okay, so you can see the reactions from people who are not happy with the situation. She's just one of them. There are many people who are not happy with the situation. Earlier, during the 1 p.m. news, I spoke with, when I was with Samson, we talked about the fact that I spoke with someone off the camera who said he bought a bag of rice for 115,000 naira just yesterday. And so with this increment in the pump price, it will increase further. That's what we're saying. A lot of people are not just happy with the situation, but from all indications, if players are coming into the sector to play in this sector, it means that we might be seeing a reduction. But for now, this is the price that NNPCL has set, 998 naira per litre in Lagos.
Well, it's pretty sad that we're seeing this 12.7% increase on pump price, particularly now that in Lagos it's selling for 998 naira. Compare what we'll get, how people will see this particular commodity in other states. For instance, Edo, you were in Edo State, and you know how much you bought petrol at the time while it was sold for 855 naira here in Lagos. In other states, one can only wonder what they'll be going through right now. Just from what we heard from that woman over there, she says we move, but you can hear the resignation in her voice. Theophilus, thank you so much for helping us understand what the situation is like on the field. We'll definitely bring you some other details later on the show. Hopefully, we're able to get all of the stakeholders playing in this sector to respond to some of these concerns that are being raised on the streets. Well, let's take you to another story now, where the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria has called on the federal government to set up a national economic recovery team to provide solutions to the current challenges in the country. The president of the institute, who made the call at the 54th Annual Conference of Accountants in Abuja, said the government must get it right in addressing these challenges.
Nigeria's economy is grappling with a myriad of challenges ranging from inflation, currency devaluation, foreign exchange scarcity, dependence on oil exports, among others. The administration of President Tinubu came on board with several initiatives to help restructure and reposition the country for growth and development.
Thank you, sirs.
At this 54th Annual Conference of Accountants, ICANN challenged the government to set up an economic recovery team which will involve the well-being of Nigerians across board and prefer solutions that will help achieve an all-inclusive growth.
Nigeria produces petroleum, but we don't have fuel, which is a major thing we require to drive any economy. Government should try and fix our refineries. They should also encourage private investors that have refineries, or those that want to build. Government should do that.
Speakers at the conference want members of ICANN to support government moves aimed at re-energizing Nigeria's economy towards productivity.
Governments and organizations are increasingly relying on digital tools to improve service delivery, enhance efficiency, and promote transparency. As accountants, we must adapt to this new reality by embracing digital innovations that can improve our processes and outcomes.
Members work in the companies that drive Nigerian economy. So their contribution in the success of those businesses is key in ensuring that these businesses are successful, that these businesses drive the economy. And so we see a partnership with ICANN as being very fundamental for driving economic changes, social development, as well as economic impact for our people.
The conference brings together accountants, finance professionals, policymakers, business leaders, and other stakeholders to discuss various issues affecting the accounting profession, business environment, and the country at large.
Over 9,000 accountants are present in this annual conference. The focus series, Governance Reimagined, Remarking the Future. It is hoped that the recommendations made at the conference will help reshaping the Nigerian economy. Helen Osamede Akins, TVC News, Abuja.
All right, so let's take you to our top stories, which is breaking news that some filling stations of the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited has increased the pump price of petrol from 855 naira per litre to 998 naira per litre. Well, this new development represented 12.7% increase from the initial price. Well, let's better understand what really is involved in this price hike within 30 days. That's within weeks of the first increment. Well, to take us through this and make us understand some of these issues relating to pricing of petrol in Nigeria, let's bring in a media practitioner and PR specialist, Mr. Ahmad Sajo. It's good to have you join us on Business Nigeria.
Well, thank you very much. It's my pleasure. I know we all woke up to a news that is not very palatable. Some of these decisions are so hard on the citizens and also hard on the government itself, because no government would deliberately and consciously inflict hardship on the people. But I think we need to understand one or two things. The first is the fact that when we were clamoring for the signing of the Petroleum Industry Bill, the PIB, these are some of the effects. Once you divest government authority or government control of the petroleum industry sector, you are invariably, asking that the market forces should determine what happens to the industry sector. And I think this is where we're taking it off from. And then we also have to understand that when oil system is floating as it is floating now within the market space, so many other extraneous factors could affect oil prices. One of them is the crisis in the Middle East. Definitely, the Middle East has always been the oil capital of the world, And when there is crisis in the Middle East, naturally oil prices will go up. We hope that this crisis will be over very soon so that the oil prices will stabilize. We also understand that the cost of the dollar to a national currency, whether our national currency or the national currencies of places where refining takes place, would also affect the price of the commodity. And most importantly, of course, for the oil that is refined here in Nigeria at the Dangote refinery and the other modular refineries, the cost of refining a liter will definitely determine the price of a liter. And until we get to know how much it takes to refine 1 liter of petroleum, we will not be able to understand the price regime. So there are 3 factors that are affecting the pricing regime. And they are all part of the package that we clamored for when we were talking about Petroleum Industry Bill, which is now the Petroleum Industry Act, PIA. You know, the factors of the fluctuation and the cost of petroleum or crude oil in the international market, the factors that have to do with the price of our currency and, you know, local currency vis-a-vis the dollar, which is the currency that is used in pricing of oil, crude oil and others, and of course the cost of refining the oil, whether it is local or outside this country. And I think these are the things that are into play that is creating this adjustment in the price by about 12.7 or thereabout percent. I must tell you that it's a difficult and very, very, very hard decision, not just for government to take, but for the people to absorb.
I get what you're saying, but a lot of persons are concerned that you seem to be putting the blame really on the external forces. You mentioned the crisis in the Middle East. You also mentioned the exchange rate of the naira to the dollar. But the people will be asking questions about really what really is our government doing to ensure up this external forces or external effect on oil sector.
First and foremost, I am not speaking for government, but you know, there's nothing government can do. When there is crisis in the Middle East, it's crisis in the Middle East. Even the world powers have been unable to contain the crisis in the Middle East. That is beyond our own government. I agree with you that government can take measures to make sure that our currency stabilizes, and I think government has taken sufficient measures. Crude oil sold to Dangote refineries is going to be in naira, and other modular refineries and even refineries that are going to come up after this time. The cost is being sold to them in naira, and where the government is also insisting that they will sell the refined products to marketers in naira. We're hoping that when that policy matures properly, effectively, it will definitely create stability of our currency. It will reduce dependence on the dollar as a means of, you know, doing business within the country. We think that is one way that the government has taken, and I understand that there are other measures government is taking to ensure that other dollar-based transactions, you know, revert to naira-based transactions so as to reduce over-dependence on the dollar as a currency of transaction in Nigeria. That may also stabilize the naira further. That's what the government can do. But the cost, if it costs, for example, Dangote refinery, like it does in other refineries, a certain X amount of money to refine a liter of petroleum product, it has to be sold at a margin that gives him some profit so that his business can also remain afloat. And again, government has very little it can do on that, because quite definitely, you know, he has to sell according at a price that will make his factory to be sustainable. Otherwise, you know, it may fold up. And so these are, yes, in the case of the Naira, government can take decisions and has taken decisions, for example, like selling the crude oil in Naira, like undertaking governmental operations in Naira, and then ensuring that every transaction regarding the fuel system, the downstream system in Nigeria is done in Naira. That may help in stabilizing the Naira against the dollar. But I don't think government can do anything on its own, with the Middle East crisis, except probably join other world leaders in calling for a truce or mediation and whatever. But government, our Nigerian government cannot directly influence or say, look, Middle East crisis must go. Then secondly, like I said, in the case of what it takes to refine a liter of fuel, that again is determined by forces at play at the refineries and at the points of where the refineries determine their selling price based on what it takes them to refine a liter of fuel. So we have.
I'm really glad you brought
we are
in
in
the
a situation.
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought up the conversation of the Dangote refinery and the NNPCL. When it opened up, we rode the red carpets, we were celebrating as if it was one of Nigeria's refinery that got opened. But take a look at the back and forth from the management of the Dangote refinery and the NNPCL. Really, how would you react to this?
So I think my glass is always half full. It's never half empty. I'm a very optimistic person. And I must tell you that I am looking at it. I'm looking at it from the point of view of the fact that all those back and forth, as you called them, have been resolved. I'm looking at it within the context of what happened when GSM was brought to Nigeria. I bought my first SIM, 25,000 naira, and then the last SIM I bought was 100 naira. So I'm just looking at a situation where, by the time we have a seamless take-off of the process, the Dangote refinery and the other modular refineries that are ready for production, and the other refineries that will come on stream, I hope that by the time all of this come together, the aggregate benefit will be that prices will go down. And I also believe that if we sustain the sale of crude oil to Dangote refinery and other refineries in Naira, and we insist that they sell their products in Naira, they don't value their products in dollars, but eventually we will be better off for it. But at present, honestly, I agree with every Nigerian that things are tough, things are hard. While it is seriously a concern for government that they must do something to stabilize the nation state so as to ensure that the nation state does not collapse, or that the social situation in the country is made in such a manner that it can carry on the other aspects, because even the economic sphere of the country is determined by our social sphere. How stable are we? How cohesive are we? How functional are our institutions of state? These are the determinants, and they determine everything, including the economy. So while I really sympathize with government for having to take very hard decisions that makes it worrisome to the citizens, I also sympathize with the citizens, because for them, the hardship is about living and livelihood, lives and livelihoods. The hardships are about surviving, harsh conditions in the economy, in the social sphere, in this, And so we're looking at a situation where nobody is smiling. To be very fair, to all sides, nobody is smiling. I don't think government has any reason to smile when it has citizens that are, going through very difficult situations. And I know that the citizens are also not smiling. But I pray that, like I said, I'm an optimist. I pray that with this hardship comes relief. The president of the country told us on the 1st of October that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. I just pray that, the tunnel, in fact, is not long enough for some of us not to be able to see the light.
Well, I really hope your optimism shows up in our pockets and at the filling stations. But the NNPCL manages FG's owned refineries. Really, what's your position with regards to the stake in Dangote refinery? And are you sure we won't finally abandon these refineries? We know that, from your conversations that some already have been rehabilitated with borrowed funds.
I think it's a worrisome situation that we've had 4 refineries that have not been functioning for very many years. It's also a worrisome situation that those refineries are being funded, at least the staff have been receiving their emoluments, and for practically doing nothing, if you may. I think Nigerians have a right to ask questions about what is happening, but I also know that rehabilitating an existing entity, it's a little bit more difficult than we want to look at it. When you are rehabilitating an existing factory or industry that had been abandoned for years, you may just begin to discover that, as you make a certain section functional, certain other sections that you may think were okay may have either rusted or there were leakages. Many other things would have happened, over the years that would make the rehabilitation process, a bit more difficult, more cumbersome. Because according to the NNPCL, from the information we were able to gather from their leadership and from even their public engagement functions, is that as soon as they repair or they rehabilitate a section, they test it. And when they test it, they discover that there are, a few errors in the functionality, and they have to rehabilitate all over again.
So are you suggesting we build new ones?
No, I think refineries are actually built to last a long while. Our problem is that when you fire a refinery, when it starts to function, you do not stop it. When you stop it, and then by the time you want to rehabilitate it, you discover more problems. As it is now, if they are able to rehabilitate any of the refineries and fire it, I hope there will be a sustainability plan such that we don't have to abandon it again, and let the parts and the system go bad as it has been. And I also know that NNPCL had mentioned at some point in time in the past that they are also thinking of going into public-private partnership to work on the refinery and make sure that their functionality. I hope and I pray that one works. My optimism is based on the fact that by the time we sincerely and seriously, work or support the Dangote venture properly as we are supporting them now, with crude oil in Naira, with little transportation costs from point of extraction of crude oil to the refinery. By the time we support our modular refineries, also not forgetting that because they are small, we should not be focusing all our attention on the Dangote and forget about the small modular refineries. They are also entities in their own right, and the promoters of those modular refineries are also in their own way contributing. They are putting in their own resources, and I think we must appreciate them at that level also. By the time we're able to get those modular refineries and then the government refineries come on stream, we're hoping that the market will be flooded with products, and market forces will force these products, the prices of those products to go down, and may also force the Dangotes and the other refineries available to begin to export, and perhaps the margin of profit they get from exporting their crude oil should enable them to lower the prices for domestic consumption, because there will be economies of scale for them when they are producing and exporting at a higher cost to countries that have always dependent on our own subsidized fuel in Nigeria. they may be making a lot more profit, and that profit must translate into lower cost for domestic consumption. So at the end of the day, I am optimistic that the prices will go down. But the major concern is that, like they will tell you, that the hunter's wife must cook meat before the hunter comes back from the bush. So what is going to happen in the immediate? And in the immediate, that's our major concern, because in the immediate now, we're seeing prices of refined products going up, and particularly PMS, and with the attendant hardship it inflicts on our people. Nigerians are very resilient, but I don't think that the elasticity of our resilience is endless. So we must find a middle ground where we can bring down these prices as fast as possible. But let me reiterate again that the price of oil is an international commodity. It's like gold. The price of gold is determined not in Nigeria. The price of oil is determined not in Nigeria. It's determined internationally. Whether you are producing it or you're not producing it, but the price eventually is determined internationally. And several factors affect the price at the international level. And one of them presently is the crisis in the Middle East.
Crisis in the Middle East. I hear you, sir, media practitioner and PR specialist, Mr. Ahmad Sajo. Thank you so much for pumping some optimism into there. Hopefully this translates into some smiles for Nigerians, because we're all going through this. I can't even imagine.
I'm optimistic. I still tell you that when I bought my first SIM GSM is 25,000. Now I'm buying it for 100
you, sir.
Naira. I pray it happens like that with fuel.
Hopefully. Thank you so much for talking to us on Business Nigeria.
Thank you. My pleasure always. Thank you.
Well, still to come on the show, we will shift our focus to the latest report by the National Bureau of Statistics, which says Nigeria records $2.6 billion in capital importation for second quarter of the year 2024. Industrial sector analyst Chapel Hill Deadman, Mr. James Ola Adisa, will be joining me on the show to continue this conversation after this break. This is Business Nigeria. Well, thanks for staying with us on Business Nigeria. Amid the federal government's investment drive, Nigeria's capital importation maintained good stead at $2.6 billion in the second quarter of the year 2024, thereby portraying a robust increase of more than 152% year-on-year compared to $1.03 billion in the second quarter of the year 2023. And this is according to a new report by the National Bureau of Statistics in its latest capital importation report in Abuja. The National Bureau office said in terms of sector ranking, the banking sector recorded the highest inflow with $1.1 billion, representing 43.15% of total capital imported in the period, closely followed by the production and manufacturing sector at $624 million, representing 23.99%, and trading sector standing at $569 million, representing 21%. An industrial sector analyst, Chapel Hill Denman, Mr. James Oladisa, is joining us to help us understand really why we have that increase. Thank you so much for joining us on Business Nigeria. All right, Nigeria's capital importation reached $2.6 billion in the second quarter of the year 2024. And people have seen this as a robust increase year on year compared to 1.03 in the year 2023. What do you make of these figures?
So, like you rightly said, we saw capital importation, total capital importation increased by about 2.5 times, $2.6 billion. And if you look at the contribution of this capital that is imported into the country, we see see that it mostly came from money market instruments as well as loans, foreign loans into the country, and that's what drove the increase that we're seeing in capital importation in Q2 2024. But if we look at it on a quarterly basis, we see that there was actually a decline. There was a 73% decline, 75% decline in foreign direct investment to about $29 billion, to about $29 million, and that's around the lowest that we've seen so far in the past 10 years. In terms of foreign portfolio investments, there was a 13.1 times expansion that we saw in the figure. And we also saw a decline of about 47% in terms of, 1% in terms of other investments. And I think that these figures are quite instructive because when we look at foreign direct investment and the significant decline, it sort of underscores the challenges that we face in Nigeria, which sort of keep foreign investors away from our markets. But in terms of assets, looking at foreign portfolio investments, we still see some inflows coming to our country, and it speaks to the pricing of some of the assets that we see on the fixed income side of things, also on the equity side of things, which have attracted investors into our domestic market. So we believe that it's a positive development, foreign capital. If we look at the trend between net inflows in the NAFEM window and we look at foreign portfolio investment, we see that it accounts for about 33%. And it means that, if foreign portfolio investments improve, we would see liquidity improve in the NAFEM window, and that would also translate to possibly a stronger currency. So we like the fact that, we've seen it improve on a year-on-year basis in such a significant leap, with such a significant leap.
Well, a look at the ongoing reforms and impact on economic development. Well, inflation is, of course, chasing the roof now. An increase in rates is not helping the situation. Really, what next?
Well, the central bank governor has made it known that, we cannot fight poverty with inflation at certain levels. And so we're beginning to see them being very, very contractionary and very, very hawkish. And so we think that, they will continue to do this for as long as inflation remains runaway. And we would also expect that, development or economic growth will be sort of limited while we go through this phase of, heightened interest rates.
But do you think investors really are willing to put funds into the Nigerian economy? How attractive is the Nigerian market at this time?
Well, you can look at it from two perspectives. The first would be look at domestic investors. The reality is that if we are to see any economic development, we are to see a deepening of our capital markets, that would be driven by domestic investors. But from a foreign investor's perspective, there are three main factors that we see as roadblocks that keep them cautiously optimistic concerning this market. First of all is the fact that the foreign exchange is quite volatile, and we've seen some of these foreign investors invest heavily in Nigeria, and in order to repatriate their dividends, they're having a hard time, and that has in turn translated to apathy towards the Nigerian market. And so we see this as the second roadblock. The third is that we're seeing some of these manufacturing or consumer goods companies. We've seen foreign investment into Nigeria to build some of the fast-moving consumer good companies that we're seeing in the country. Some of them that have been here for a very long time, and because of the devaluation of the currency, the loans that have been given to these subsidiaries, they're not able to meet all their obligations, and so we're beginning to see that these businesses are converting these loans into equity. If they had other options, they might have explored it. So these are some of the reasons why we think that, the foreign investors, or from the perspective of a foreign investor, the Nigerian market is positive if you're looking at it from a long-term view, but they are also remaining cautious, in coming in the market.
Oh, of course, both local and international businesses are talking about sustainability at this time, really. But what should they be looking out for? Since we've seen increase in manufacturing sector, in the banking sector, and even in the trading sector?
Yeah, so I think, if you're looking at Nigeria as this place, your view cannot be short term. You have to look at long-term opportunity in the country. And, if investors begin to look at the country from that perspective, from a long-term perspective, they will begin to see the opportunities in the country. So we believe that, Nigeria over a long term, we're beginning to turn the corner. Presidential speech, as the president mentioned, there is light at the end of the tunnel. And so, if we're taking hard decisions to sort of put our economy on track, the reality is that it will not immediately translate to growth for some of these companies. But over the long term, when these policies begin to have their full effect on the economy, we will then begin to see an improvement in, the operations of the manufacturing companies, and the banking sector will begin to see growth. Even in trade, we'll begin to see growth.
Thank you so much, Industrial Sector Analyst Chapel Hill Denham, Mr. James Oladisa. Thank you so much for speaking with us and telling us that it's not all gloom in the market. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts on Business Nigeria. Well, it's now time to review trading activities at the Nigerian Exchange Limited, and hopefully we'll bring on our stock broker. He'll be joining us very soon. But before we go to that story, let's bring you more reports on our top stories, which is that at the filling stations, that's retail outlets of the NNPCL, they are now selling fuel at 1,030 naira in the Federal Capital Territory, while other stations have also adjusted their pump price to higher rates. Well, some stations who are able to sell the products have very long queues. Early in August, the NNPCL had adjusted its pump price from 568 naira to 855 naira per litre in Abuja, and then now this increase. And I understand that we have our correspondent Helen Osamide-Akins in the Federal Capital Territory to help us understand how people are feeling about this new pump price. Helen, talk to us. What's the situation like at the filling station you're at?
Yes, Sarah, it is confirmed. Right now, I'm in front of NNPC Limited, one of its filling stations in the city center in Katampe. And as you can see, the price has increased to 1,030 naira. And this increase is not just in NNPC alone. In some fuel stations we've visited, some of them have increased their own to 1,200 naira. And for some, they are not even selling the products. Some of them are open, but they are not selling, and some they are locked. So maybe before the end of the day or tomorrow, they might also open, and then it will be high. But for now, I can tell you that NNPC has adjusted its pump price to 1,030 naira, and this is against the amount they sold this morning, which is 897 naira. Like I spoke with one of the attendants here, he said the adjustment took place this afternoon. They had to just adjust it following instruction they got, so it happened this afternoon. Unfortunately, some of the motorists you see in the queue, they don't even know that the pump price have been adjusted. It's even when I was asking the fuel attendants the reason and all that, was when the person who was attending to got to know that it has actually increased. So this is what it is today in Nigeria. NNPC now sells the products for 1,030 naira, while other gas stations, fuel stations I visited, sell for 1,200 naira. And then NNPC here, where they have the product, just by my side, you can see the queue. It is endless. This is because it is still cheaper than what they buy in other stations. It's so long, the queue is endless, as you can see. And then you can recall that this is the second time from August to October that NNPC is adjusting the pump price. And you know, as soon as NNPC adjusts its pump price, every other marketers will do the same. In August, before this adjustment, they sold those products for 670 naira. In August, they increased it to 897 naira, and then today we have it at 1,030 naira. And then the implication of this is massive. It's going to affect the cost of food price in the market is going to affect the cost of transportation for every marketer, everybody who sells, every trader. As soon as you get this product, no matter how cheap you buy it from wherever you're buying, you need transportation. You need to transport this product to the market. It will also affect all this. So it's for now anyway. We are yet to hear from. We are yet to get any official statement from NNPC on the reason for this hike in the pump price as of today. So hopefully before the end of the day, they will say something and then they will defend their reason for the hike.
Some of us would have wanted to buy our Christmas rice and some foodstuff. Yesterday, I think we made a mistake by not making that payment because now everything would increase from foodstuff to all of the commodities. Helen Asamedeke, thank you so much for staying on top of that, and thank you for giving us that confirmation. We'll get back to you in the course of the news bulletin. Well, let's turn our attention now to reviewing the trading activities at the Nigerian Exchange Limited, and we have joining us on Business Nigeria, the Vice Chairman of High Cap Securities and Funds, Mr. David Adormi, joins us via phone. Thank you so much for joining us. We see that the market is closing in the red again. Talk to us about what really is influencing this negative trend. All right, I understand that we can't get Mr. Adormi on the phone just yet. But let's take you to the global markets, where China's stocks stumbled and commodities struggled to find a footing today as investors tempered the expectations for a robust Chinese economic recovery, keeping pressure on shares globally. Benchmark indexes in China notched up their biggest daily losses since the COVID-19 pandemic began, with stocks in Shanghai and blue chips closing down 6.6% and 7.1% respectively. While this snaps a 10-day winning streak. MSCI Index, World Equity Index rather, which tracks shares in 47 countries, fell 0.2%. The uncertain mood spilled into European trading, with the continent's stocks squeezing out gains of 0.1%, while elsewhere, Japan's Nikkei rose by 1%. While the African Development Bank Group has appointed a Nigerian, Mrs. Nnenna Nwabufo, as Vice President for Regional Development, Integration and Business Delivery with effect from the 4th of October. The AFDB President, Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, expressed delight at Mrs. Nwabufo's appointment. She has well over 33 years of professional experience in financial management, budget planning, human resource management, corporate services, and regional operations. And she joined the Bank Treasury Department in 1991. Okay, let's go back to the stock market, where we're about to review trading activities at the Nigerian Exchange Limited. And we have the Vice Chairman, High Cap Securities and Funds, Mr. Adormi. It's good to have you join us on Business Nigeria. We understand that the market is closing in red again. Talk to us about really what's influencing this negative trend.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Happy to be with you. Yesterday the market closed a little bit red. It declined by about 0.12%. But today, the decline was very, very marginal, about 0.001%. So technically, we can see the market closed flat today. So that is indicative of a little recovery from what we saw yesterday. But Monday was very positive. The market closed high on Monday. So the market is actually a little bit volatile. But within that volatility, I can sense some dynamic equilibrium.
So is it a seller or a buyer zone for now?
The market now.
I'm asking, is it a seller or a buyer zone for now?
Because the market is flat, it has opportunities for both selling and buying. So we cannot call it a seller's market now or a buyer's market, but there are opportunities for both sides to buy and sell in the equities market. But of course, in the debt market or bonds, where the yield is very, very high, we are still in a buyer's market there.
All right. Hopefully we get to understand what the outlook really for the fourth quarter, as the last quarter of the year, will be later on. Thank you so much for giving your perspectives on the market today. And that's Business Nigeria. Tolu Lokpo Ogujobi will be back on the next episode of the program. Thanks for staying with us.